Hi everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Thanks for joining me today. It's a real honor to be speaking to you and talking to you about how to grow your aesthetics practice without even spending a penny on marketing. You might not have even started in aesthetic medicine. You might have an interest, or you might have done a course and you're wondering how you're going to put into practice what you've learned because you're struggling to find patients. Some of you might even be experienced practitioners and you're joining us tonight to have a nosy at what we do. Or maybe you just want to improve your conversions. Whatever your motivations for being here tonight, I appreciate you taking the time out of your days to develop yourselves with me. I hope in this webinar there's going to be a thing or two that's going to be useful to you. We all want to be a success in aesthetic medicine. We all want to get more patients and grow our practice. If you're starting out, you probably don't have tons of money to spend on marketing, so you will need to find aesthetic patients from within your dental practice. This is by far the most efficient way of growing your practice. Marketing and advertising should be a last resort after you've exhausted the patients who already trust you and are already coming to see you for their dental work. But there is a problem. How do you speak to these dental patients about aesthetic medicine? How do you broach this topic without just offending them all? Most of the delegates that I teach have the same problems. You're worried that talking about aging and aesthetics will offend people. You don't know what treatments are appropriate for them. You're not confident because you've not had the right training. And you worry that you're going to come across salesy and pushy. I see so many practitioners struggling with these things, and it's frustrating because the solution is really, really simple and you already have most of the skills that you need to be a success. It's not your fault that sometimes you don't know what you're doing when you're consulting with your patients in aesthetics. They don't actually teach you this in dental school, and there certainly isn't a book on aesthetic medicine consultations yet. So I've put together all my experience of over a decade of practice and a decade of learning so that we can fast track your success a little bit here. It's plain wrong for such highly qualified and well-educated practitioners as you to be feeling embarrassed about suggesting treatments for your patients. Your patients want these treatments and they deserve your best work. It's also plain wrong that poorly trained beauticians are kicking our butts when it comes to selling aesthetic medicine treatments. The future of aesthetic medicine is in the dental industry. I really do believe that. We have all the manual dexterity skills and the anatomy skills, but we often lack in these softer skills, these consultation skills, the skills that will actually make the biggest difference to your success in aesthetic medicine. So what makes me qualified to come and talk to you on this webinar today? I'm going to keep this short because it's rude to talk about yourself too much. Over the last decade, I've founded and grown aesthetic medicine and dentistry businesses. Smileworks Aesthetics, and the Training Hub are at the cutting edge of all three professions: dentistry, aesthetics, and professional education. Some of my other career highlights include that I did some degrees along the way, which was fun and certainly made me a better practitioner. I like to know everything there is to know about the areas in which I practice so I can feel confident that I'm delivering the best care to my patients and performing to the best of my abilities. I really love private medicine and the way that you can interact with your patients when the pressures of time and UDAs are removed. My now husband and I set up Smileworks Liverpool in 2013 as a squat practice, and we were initially too poor to even invest in a dental chair. So our dental offering actually only started in 2015. After 4 expansions, we now have a facility that's over 6,200 square foot. And it's home to 7 dental surgeries, 8 aesthetic treatment rooms, over 40 staff, over 11,000 patients, and we're also making decent revenue. With the launch of the Hub, we wanted to do something really special. Our state-of-the-art training facility right next door to our practice in the heart of Liverpool is only for dentists. We wanted to focus on the professionals best suited to aesthetic medicine, which is dentists and dental therapists. Our training is for you. It's not for everyone. It's not for medics. It's not for nurses. It's not for paramedics. It's not for beauticians. It's just for you. We wanted to create a culture where peers can engage in deep learning and get the most out of their careers. And I'm really, really into cats as well. My husband is actually trying to wrangle all of them right now so we don't have some random cat cameos on this webinar. So watch the space as to his success. But anyway, I've had a really close look at how dentistry and aesthetics work together. With them being so closely intertwined, I'm pretty well placed to show you how you make the two work together to get you higher revenue, increased job satisfaction, and patients who just love what you do for them. So during this webinar, I'm going to give you insight into the main skills that not only help me reach my potential, but that will help you build a practice and increase your revenue using the patients that you've already got. And we're broadly going to have a look at comprehensive exams, the technique of co-diagnosis, and how to incorporate clinical photography into your aesthetics consultations. Executing these skills isn't something that everyone can do. It's not a quick fix problem. It's not a quick fix to a problem, not by any stretch of the imagination. It takes time, practice, and courage to step outside your comfort zone. But if you're someone who is persistent and tenacious, hardworking, and ready to take the step in your career, then your reward is going to be bigger than you ever imagined. Get this right, and you'll be at the top of your game in the aesthetics industry. Aesthetic medicine is worth about 3 billion annually. That's a huge amount, and it's the same as the entire NHS dental services. It will overtake private dentistry and NHS dentistry revenue in the next few years. The government is spending less money on the NHS each year, and people do want to pay for private care. The patients who seek cosmetic dental treatment to look and feel better are the same patients who are open to aesthetic treatments. After all, you're treating the facial area. Your patients are already there and your practice is ready to grow. So here are 4 things that you can do in your consultation that will grow your aesthetics practice. And these are my top 4 tips really that I'm going to go through tonight. Number 1, modify the start of your consultation. Number 2, adapt your patient examination. Number 3, incorporate co-diagnosis to explore their pictures and options. And number 4, effectively share treatment examples. Before we even get to the start of these and the start of the consultation, there's one more little bonus tip I want to give you tonight. This is something that's overlooked by lots of practitioners, but it's such a simple thing that you can do that will give you added confidence to perform these 4 consultation techniques we're going to discuss in just a moment. To set yourself up for an effective consultation, you first need to set the patient's expectation. Setting and managing patient expectations will have a huge impact on your overall success. Every patient will arrive at your practice with an expectation. So how you manage or influence this will either help or hinder you. So let's explore an example of this. New Year's Eve, the most hyped up night of the year. Well, maybe not in 2020, but let's look back to other years. We find a party or an event advertised as the best thing ever. Your favorite DJ is even playing, you do your hair and makeup, you pick a killer outfit, spend ages getting ready, and then you get overcharged on an Uber. The queue is massive, it's raining, it's packed inside, there's 6 deep to the bar, the drinks are overpriced, some lout ends up drunk and in a fight, and the taxi home is £100. So, Ladies and gentlemen, did you have your expectations met there? Are you going to tell your friends that you had a great time? Expectations versus experiences really matter. Now, let's put this example into your work. Your patient books in, gets told at reception that they're going to have a checkup. They have a preconceived idea of what a checkup is. They think they're going to be in and out in 5 minutes and walk away with some findings and some x-rays and some fillings maybe. Then all of a sudden, you want to talk to them about their face and cosmetic treatments for perfecting their smile and enhancing other features. And they didn't expect that, so they will leave your consultation a bit overwhelmed and a little bit bitter. If your patients get something that they're not expecting, it won't work. You're a wonderful clinician, but you didn't meet the patient's expectations. You didn't meet them because you didn't manage them. You had no idea what they were expecting when they came to you. You're not a mind reader. It's not your fault. So let's look at how we set the tone and manage the patient's expectations even before they get to us. The best way to set expectations to ensure continuity from the first contact is on the phone. When the patient books in on the phone, I like my front of house to educate them on 3 things. Number 1 is what they will expect from the consultation they're coming to have. Number 2 is who I am and what I do. And the 3rd is to endorse me. Telling the patient what to expect during the consultation will ensure any preconceived expectations they have will align with what I'm about to deliver. Telling your patient that your cosmetic dentistry consultation will contain an assessment of their teeth and their face prepares them for the type of discussions they expect to have. It also gives the patient a chance to decide whether I'm the clinician that they want or not. By saying who I am and what I do, it makes the comprehensive exam a lot smoother. In my case, my front of house will say that their orthodontics and aesthetic medicine are my areas of practice, and they tell them about my education and what qualifications that I have. Then the patients may not know that I practice in facial aesthetics, so it's really important when I begin to talk about their face, the patient isn't confused and wondering what on earth I am doing. And finally, endorsing me encourages trust. Most of my front of house have had some treatment or other, so this endorsement from them is genuine, is personable, and it doesn't feel forced at all. They'll rave about their own treatments that they've had with me and tell them something like I'm easy to talk to or something along those lines, just to build that initial trust. You're now much less likely to overwhelm and disappoint your patient, and your team can set you up for that goal. This way, your patient will leave your consultation feeling fulfilled, knowing that what was delivered is exactly what was promised, and there's no nasty surprises that made them feel trapped or put on the spot. Expectation management is the key to opportunity. And it's very, very, very difficult to get back to this initial opportunity if you've let that one slip. If you avoid that interaction at the start for the sake of simpler treatments and easy wins in your comfort zone, you might never successfully get back to where you can broach that subject again. So fortune does really favour the brave. Meeting these expectations means happy patients, and happy patients tell their friends and their family. I can't stress enough how clear communication at the outset assists this in later stages of the patient journey. This will grow your practice. Get it right and you're off to a super start even before you've even met your patient. Set the tone before they even get to you. Just use your front of house. So, let's now look at my first tip, modifying the start of your consultation. You probably think at this point in time that the start of your consultation is fabulous. You greet them and then you ask them lots of questions about their teeth, which is exactly what they came to you for. but you might actually inadvertently be closing the door to aesthetic treatment options within the first few minutes of your consultation. It's important to get to the bottom of what really makes your patient tick. We are all super clever professionals, and it's really, really easy to want to impress your patient by doing all of the talking, but that's not how you truly understand them. Start by meeting the patient on the ground that they know. Get them to talk about themselves. And the way that you do that is with open and non-leading questions. Try, what brings you here today? It's worth looking at how effective that question really is. Believe it or not, you'll get a different response from how can I help you or what can I do for you, which is me helping you, versus what brings you here? Remember, the consultation is about them. This question means they can be as general or specific as they want to. Some patients chatter like a waterfall and some are totally reserved. It allows you to also gauge how confident they are. You can determine from that question also whether they've got a specific concern, like I have a dark tooth right here, which might not be as effective in selling them on aesthetic treatments as a more generalized problem, such as I'm unhappy with my smile, which is a patient telling you it might not just be about their teeth. They're asking you for solutions to make them feel better. So this question is the first step in building your discussion about aesthetics. Understanding your patient is crucial to converting them and meeting their expectations. If you achieve it correctly, it means you've identified patients who may be suitable to talk about aesthetics early on. It means you're not going to get halfway through your consultation, awkwardly pop the question about fillers and be embarrassed along with your patient. Thinking back to the first step where we talked about appropriately setting expectations, your patient should already be expecting this and prep what they're going to get from their consultation. So don't be afraid to bring up the discussion when it feels right. Another question that I really would like you to consider asking is, when you look in the mirror, how do you feel? It's not, how do you feel about your face? And it certainly isn't, how do you feel about your smile? It's just, when you look in the mirror, how do you feel? Ask it and just listen. Honestly, it's the most powerful question I ask my patients, and I ask it in every single consultation. It gets you an answer that comes right from the squishy parts of their soul. This question has given me laughter, tears, had patients spill their problems and tell me everything they hate or love about themselves. It's marvelous. It gives you an insight into what really makes your patients tick, and how they respond gives you just the most powerful answers. There are those that say, I feel awful, or I hate everything, and I hate looking in the mirror. And these are the patients that are inviting you to openly plan with them. You need to use these cues that they give you to start a comprehensive consultation. Listening to what they say, instead of just marking all these questions from a tick box, will get you far further than any corny sales chatter I or anyone on the planet can teach you. So do you see just how important the opening dialogue is? Open questions lead to a talking patient. Those of you who have trained with me already in aesthetics will be familiar with these questions. They are the essential drivers to my aesthetic consultations and something that I focus on at the Training Hub. I've done a huge amount of work and research into what gets patients to open up and tell me their secrets so I can deliver the most comprehensive and effective treatment plans. I often get told that I'm a great listener and my patients think of me as someone they can really open up to, but that is actually entirely from getting them to talk about themselves. All I do is I ask the questions and then I shut up and listen. So let's move on to tip number 2, which is modifying your patient examination. A comprehensive exam means comprehensive treatment, and that means a comprehensive outcome. Fail to do the first and the rest just won't happen. Get it right and you have a trusting patient who will literally buy anything from you. Examining properly is something that I'm sure you all do, or you think you do. I know everyone's terrified of the regulator, so you try your hardest to check every millimeter of the mouth and record it to the nth detail. But that's not going to help you sell aesthetic treatments because you're not examining the right parts. We need to evaluate the mouth as a feature of the face, so we need to evaluate the face too. It's no good giving Doris a $1 million smile if her skin quality is bad and she's got lines and wrinkles all over her face. I sometimes hear dentist colleagues tell me it's pointless fixing the tooth at the front when the rest of the mouth looks like a bag of chips. Well, the same thought process could be applied when looking at patients' smile in relation to the rest of their face. Sure, they might not consider aesthetic treatments, but what if they do? They would be elated that a medical professional has addressed this with them. So it's your duty to give them that option, and whether they choose to have it is a matter for them. Discussing options is what we do as dentists and dental therapists. And whilst you wouldn't hesitate to tell a patient that could have an implant to restore a tooth, you fail to discuss other areas for improvement that might actually protect your patient from other conditions. A comprehensive aesthetic practitioner that discusses the whole scope of practice might be able to modify health behaviour like wearing sunscreen. And this not only influences the aging process, but also protects your patient from things like skin cancer. So really, aesthetics isn't all about being fickle and vain. I know that some of you might have a vision in your mind about horribly disfigured lips as a result of filler and people running around with body dysmorphia. And I'm not for a second disputing that this exists in the aesthetic community. There is still a huge stigma attached to seeking aesthetic treatments, and for some patients, they may feel vain or too embarrassed to seek professional help. These people are desperate for someone they trust, like you, their dentist, to show them that it's normal and safe to have this kind of treatment. And trust me, when you get one of these patients in your chair who's over the moon to finally speak freely with a medical professional about aesthetics, it's like a light bulb moment, and you'll want to do it again and again. It's fab. I'm not going to go into details about intraoral assessment, but your assessment of the patient's face should be just as much part of their dental consultation. You need to be systematic, just like you are in your dental exam, to get predictable outcomes. So let's have a look at the main areas that I go through when I'm examining my patient. I look at the skin, including Fitzpatrick scale, which is a measure of skin colour, so the amount of melanin from light to dark. I also look at the Glogau scale, which is a measure of photoaging and a super handy way of assessing the degree of skin aging and how this relates to their actual age. So basically, whether they've looked after their skin or not. I have a look at positive attributes, so things that make them look better. For example, does their face improve when they smile? I also have a look at negative attributes, so things that make them look worse. And then I have a look at the upper face, the mid face, and the lower face, and make a note of everything else. These are just objective assessments. Look, palpate, note them down, just like you would in your dental exam. They'll be useful in the next step when you come to assess the patient's photos with them. A full face exam means you prove that you are a comprehensive practitioner. You are there to make people feel nice when they look in the mirror, and limiting yourself to examination of the mouth means you're limiting the patient's treatment options as well. For each of the items that I have a look at, I like to explain to the patient a little bit about what's going on. For example, the patient has lost volume in their face, so I tell them a little bit about the aging process and what happens in facial aging. about how fat layers of the face age, reduce in size, and that results in sagging. This will have effects on tissue laxity, so maybe something like the amount of tooth on display. Really make sure you link everything together so that the feeling of comprehensivity is maintained for your patients. Dentists are cool telling people about the age-related changes of the mouth, but when you're asked to discuss facial aging, you become unstuck. This is what we practice a lot in consultations at the Hub, so that you can explain with ease what is going on in aging and the aging face. Moving away from selling and into educating the patient really shows them the problem and allows them to explore the situation with you. And before you know it, they're asking for the solutions to what you've just discussed with them. So, let's move on to my next tip number 3, which is using co-diagnosis to explore their pictures and options. Co-diagnosis is about sharing decision-making with your patient and reaching a treatment plan with them. It might sound obvious to you, but consultations are still often paternalistic or authoritarian, where the dentist makes all the decisions and is quite prescriptive about what treatment that they're going to do. The paternalistic approach might have worked for a while, but it means that the clinician drives the decision and the patient is left with only 2 options, and that's either to have the treatment or to not. This also often means that the patient doesn't share ownership of the treatment plan, and if things go wrong, it's easy to blame you, the clinician. I'm sure we've all seen this before, and do you know what? I'm sure we've all been there before. Co-diagnosis works in a 3-step way to guide the patient through the consultation and discussions, explorations, and it engages them in their treatment plan. The first step is to recognize the problem together with the patient. Then you discuss the options for treatment in a non-biased way, making sure you explain to them what happens if they do nothing and highlight then the benefits of having treatment and how the patient might expect to look and feel once they've had the treatment. Incorporating co-diagnosis means assessment looks a lot more structured, and you're delivering consistency with a patient who feels completely in control of their decisions. So it's marvelous for proving that you've gained appropriate consent as well. What's more, you can use this technique with clinical photographs. This helps assess and discuss the issues that you might feel are pressing without coming across as overbearing. Most clinicians actually think they're doing this already, but really incorporating co-diagnosis is much more nuanced than just coming up with multiple options and giving them select treatment plans to choose from. It's about integrating exploration and choice and letting them discover options whilst you act as their guide. A lot of patients are not actually aware of what exactly their problems are, so it's up to you to physically explore that with them. Lots of practitioners, lots of dentists, lots of dental therapists take clinical pictures for the gram, for their portfolio, for medical records, but few actually discuss them and use them with the patient. It is honestly one of the most powerful ways of converting patients for treatments that I have ever discovered. Handing the patient a mirror is all well and great, but then it's not very effective because you're asking them to judge themselves. Firstly, their arm gets tired and it wanders all over the place, once right in front of the face and once further away. But more importantly, mirrors are subjective and they subtly manipulate the mind, and they create, just this highly subjective and biased view of themselves. Photographs nudge the patient away from the subjective and more towards the objective way of what's really going on. Patients don't become as fixated as on one part of their reflection when they're looking at pictures, and pictures somewhat neutralize the chance of both of you seeing the same thing. patients become a little bit more critical and start to see the bigger picture and pointing out things that they don't like in an objective fashion. You can do this with extraoral and intraoral pictures and guide the patient by asking questions, and you know how much I love asking questions, such as, how do you feel about this angle? Or tell me what you see. Keep it nice and open, so let the patient do the talking first. So let's have a little look at a typical series of pictures that I would use in a dental consultation. For those of you who treat orthodontic patients, some of these are part of your normal clinical picture series anyway. They're also the standard set that you would take for a comprehensive facial assessment evaluation. So as a dentist, you've got the skills and you're most of the way there already. The clearer your pictures, the better your co-diagnosis will be. There's no two ways about it. You can do the outside in or the inside out approach of looking at pictures with your patient. I prefer outside in, so looking at the facial pictures first and leaving the area open to go back to later on. When you start with teeth, that's wonderful, but it's really hard to shift the conversation away from teeth and you end up talking just about teeth. I know you're all going to have opinions on what to say and to do about teeth, so I'm just going to keep it to faces in this webinar. You have the skills to do all of this already. We have cephalometry dinned into us at university, and many of you probably haven't used it since, unless you're doing ortho. You can add your own details, but here's some examples of what I would discuss and how I would lead this consultation with this lady. First off, I put the pictures up and I just let her look. Often she'll come up with some pretty insightful stuff without you even needing to lead her. So let's have a look at these pictures. Let's ask her some questions and let her do the talking. I ask her maybe things like, what does she like? What doesn't she like? And if there's anything that she wants to discuss in particular about these pictures. I say, what do you see? Which is super open. And then rather than say something to do with the skin quality and possibly embarrass her, because obviously she's got quite a lot of pigmentation here, I'll ask her something like, what skincare do you use? Or do you use sunscreen? If there is, like in this instance, some pigmentation. And then from that, you're into a conversation about that and about skincare. Just like I did in my examination, I split the face into upper face, mid face, and lower face. And often I do that just by holding a piece of paper in front of my monitor and just letting them look. This approach allows me to sort of annotate the pictures and discuss the various areas with the patient, tell them sort of what's ideal and what's not ideal, and let them work out whether they're close to the ideal or not, and really sort of what they see in those individual sections. So let's have a look at the frontal view. So the frontal view picture, you can have a little chat about facial balance, such as the rule of thirds. You split the face into 3 equal parts, and that allows you to evaluate discrepancies in the individual thirds in terms of height. And you can talk about upper, mid, and lower face. If you don't want to sit and annotate pictures with your patient, like, if you don't want to have the pressure of drawing on the actual pictures, just get a piece of paper and hold the piece of paper in front of the things that you don't want to discuss. So hold it in front of the lower, mid and lower face and discuss the upper face and so on. You can evaluate symmetry by drawing a line down the center of the face like this. And here you might notice discrepancies within the volume or the height of the cheek or things like that, and discuss how volume loss is a product of aging, which could be corrected by dermal filler. By doing this, you're carefully planting the solution in their minds. So then let's go on to having a look at the side view. You can have a look at skeletal class and pay particular attention to the relationship of the chin to the face. So also have a look at the Frankfurt plane, the true vertical, and how the chin sits in relation to the mid face. If it's retruded, this is your opportunity to discuss surgery, but also options of modification with filler if it's deficient. Having a look at the nasolabial angle and the rickets E-line is crucial in discussing the lower third in profile view. If you draw them on, or just use your bit of paper again, and give patients the information on the averages and compare what the patient is in relation to that average. Nasolabial angles in women should be about between 90 and 110 degrees. And the rickets E-line, the picture that you see in the middle, should be 4 millimeters away from the upper lip and 2 millimeters away from the lower lip. So you'll be able to identify a small lip with the patient and discuss their options for improvement with something like filler. Again, I'm only going to touch on this briefly, but you can make this so much more detailed. But if you're starting out, keep the assessments simple, memorable, repeatable and predictable so that you can highlight treatment needs that lie within your scope of practice. It's about getting you new patients. Let's also have a look at 3/4 views. So 3/4 views are really useful as this is the view that the patient sees most often. I call it the selfie angle. It's essential if you're considering nose, chin, or cheek augmentations. You can assess the mid-facial volume by looking at the curvature of the cheek and the cheek contour. And this angle is actually the one where the patient will definitely have an opinion, so don't skip over discussing with them. Highlighting all of these areas is key to co-diagnosis. An engaged patient in this process will naturally identify them with you and ask you for ways of fixing it. This will result in an interaction which is dynamic, it will be free-flowing, and more importantly, it will be driven by the patient. Of course, you also have to give them the option of not having treatment due to the linear nature of time. However, aging does carry on, lips lose volume, cheeks sink and wrinkles, well, they wrinkle. With some dental cases, patients don't often see the problem immediately because it's in their mouth. So not going ahead with treatment is much more easily justified. But with aging, the problem is literally staring them in the face every morning. So make them aware of it, but be kind. Telling them it's only going to get worse is kind of insulting. So adopt a sympathetic tone. After a patient identifies the treatment area with them that they're not happy with, you could say something like, listen, if you're open to X, Y, and Z, it will reduce these lines and improve these areas. Everybody ages and some people choose to accept it while some people gently modify this process. I can help you with that. You remember earlier on, I said about how you never get a chance to go back to a comprehensive discussion with your patient. If you've given them awareness via co-diagnosis and the options, and they decide not to go ahead with it, then that's completely cool. But having put it out there to start with means you can re-explore it at a later stage, having planted the seed early on. And when they're ready, they will most likely choose you. It's important that we teach patients that dental work can only do so much to change facial features. So aesthetic treatments such as filler might be the answer for them and complement the investment that they've made in their teeth and their cosmetic dental work. So think of it less as selling and more as educating. I know you want to sell ethically, so educate and let them choose. This way, you can plan aesthetic treatment with them at an early stage, and you know you've covered it at an optimal time when they're open, receptive, and ready to listen. You discuss the science and the objective facts to be comprehensive, and then present the solutions without being aggressively salesy or overbearing. I'm sure you've heard about the patient who successfully sued their dentist for not discussing the gap on the lower tooth and not suggesting an implant. Well, whilst your patients are unlikely to sue you for not discussing aesthetic treatments, you're still doing them a massive disservice by not being comprehensive enough and not mentioning the face in their dental consultations. Facial assessment, facial aging, and how to evaluate clinical pictures with the patient are a huge component of what I teach at the Hub. I want you to have the knowledge and appreciation to confidently speak to both aesthetic and dental patients and modify your consultations so you can grow your aesthetic practice. It would be crazy to think that I could condense all of this into a teensy tiny part of this webinar, because it's arguably one of the most important parts of what we do at the Hub and what successful practitioners do. But you can come and learn all about that with us. So let's move on to tip number 4, effectively sharing treatment examples. Sometimes you'll have discussed all of these tips and pointers with them and they still don't get it. So you've got to show them. A picture tells 1,000 words. You've probably all got portfolios and Instagram profiles, which are worth so much when communicating with your patient. So make sure you have them readily available in your consultation. They're not just for your mates and for likes. The best examples are obviously ones where you've worked on both dental and aesthetic aspects, so they are they're similar to the patient that you have before you. But if you're new to aesthetics, you might not have these examples, so you need to approach your cases in a slightly different way. One of the best ways to do this is actually self-critique. It's really powerful to discuss your cases with patients and highlight what you did well, but also what you could have done differently. It's a great way to show your patient that you are constantly doing better every time. Take this case, for example. I would say, I love treating this case with braces. She's got a brilliant orthodontic result. We did discuss with her how improving her lip volume with filler would put less gum on show and contribute to a much more balanced appearance. Then follow up with, she loved her teeth and she's thinking about having some lip filler or something along those lines, or she's booked in with me within a couple of weeks to have some lip filler, or something like that. If you've actually had the opportunity to do the treatment, then so much the better. It shows your patient that you are comprehensive and you're thinking about more than just how her teeth will look. By the way, those 2 pictures on the right-hand side were taken just after treatment, so she's a little bit bruised, especially on the lower lip. It's an opportunity for you to show your patient that aesthetic results can be beautiful, balanced, and subtle. And if you've got a review from this patient to go with it, it's even better. Please don't use other practitioners' pictures to win your patient over. This will just mismanage your patient's expectations and set you up for glorious failure. Like I said earlier, if your patients get something that they're not expecting or that you can't deliver, it won't work. So use your own examples. When you're starting off on your first few cases, take decent before and after pictures of your work. Do this every time to create an accurate portfolio that you can refer to, reflect on, and work to improve. Once you've got a few cases, it's like a snowball. And that actually brings me on to some pretty exciting news. With the launch of our new training facility, the Smileworks Aesthetic Hub, we're also launching what we call practice days for our graduates. This is an exclusive opportunity as a Hub delegate to come back to my aesthetic practice and treat patients end to end under supervision. It's there for you to build case examples and gain more experience in real world aesthetics that will set yourself up as a practitioner above the rest. You can kickstart your career by using our state-of-the-art photo studio equipped with professional cameras, sophisticated lighting, and hand-picked models who are all wonderful and that we provide for you. So you actually get photographic proof of your brilliant work. Treat our patients, take their photos, and then showcase your winning portfolio on your website, on your Instagram, at your consultations, or whatever platform your patients will look you up on, and you know they will. Not everyone gets a fast track opportunity to turn heads as a new aesthetic practitioner, so I urge you to push yourself a little further and take every new lesson opportunity presented in this webinar. These hub practice days are marvelous, and if you're interested, contact my training coordinator Davina and have a chat about whether that is right for you and whether you'd like to make use of that opportunity. So there, it is science, it's not sales. Patients will make decisions based on what they expect and their first interactions with you. So you need to start by setting the expectations you want them to have. Use your front of house to set the tone of the consultation before patients arrive, and that will prepare them for the type of discussion and treatment plan that you will deliver for them. This means you can work with the confidence that you won't be dropping any unexpected clangers that leave both you and your patient feeling awkward. Start with open-ended questions so the patient talks about themselves. Remember what brings you here today, and when you look in the mirror, how do you feel? Give them a chance to feel in control whilst you listen and learn about what they really want. This will help you identify receptive aesthetics patients from the beginning and will determine how you will approach the examination part. Integrate the face into your comprehensive exam. Don't just look at their teeth, look at the face and the skin and explain why you're looking at these areas. Clarify why it's important to have a complete overview before planning treatment and stick with the facts. Remember, you're educating and not selling. You're using objective science and letting them make their own decisions, not being judgy or some demeaning frenemy. It's also how you will get around your inner demons telling you it's insulting or you're overstepping. Be their guide by educating, exploring, and engaging with your patient in their photographs of what you see and what can be done approach to treatment. Ask them to share what they see, then show them what you're capable of by sharing treatment examples, which is the best way to showcase what you do and can reinforce why you're the best person for them. After all, they already trust you as a dentist. This shows them that you're a comprehensive practitioner because you look at the bigger picture, and it will set you apart from many others in aesthetics. Enlightened and insightful patients want a qualified and trained practitioner to look after them. Let's be real for a moment. Not everyone will want your treatment, and that's okay. But you can't just sit there and expect every patient to be dropped into your lap and hand-delivered to your practice. You can't expect to build an aesthetics practice if you are scared to make the first move. So build yourself up to talking about aesthetic treatment. These simple modifications to your consultation and assessment could mean the difference between your practice taking off or not. It's time we stop seeing aesthetics as beauty and start seeing it as a medical discipline complementary to dentistry, an integral part of your business, just like whitening or composite bonding, and not as a side hustle, because it's huge and it isn't going anywhere. My average long-term aesthetic patient spends between £900 and £1,500 a year with me. They come for one thing, and before I know it, through a relationship of trust and exploration of their options, they stick around for all sorts of other treatments. This revenue is available to you too. I've purposefully stuck to the modifications that you can make to your processes in this webinar. These are things that you can influence. This means you don't need to coordinate your team very much, you don't need to ask for permission, and you don't need to organize anything. It's just changes that bring about wins, and it's super efficient. The ROI on modifying your processes in surgery is astronomical compared with any other marketing. Sure, there are other methods to raise awareness of aesthetics within your practice. Standard things like sending out mailers to tell patients that you do aesthetics, having open days, updating your website and posting on social. That's all great and will certainly help, but those are the petrol station flowers equivalent of talking to your patients about aesthetics. It's the confidence to talk about aesthetics with potential patients that will ultimately grow your practice. Use these techniques well and you can increase your aesthetics base from your dental patients. You won't need to spend thousands on marketing or hire someone to help you get your practice off the ground. You have the patients right in front of you, and you have the skills, and you now have a plan on how to do it. You have everything that you need to start growing your aesthetics practice right now. So be persistent with it. Use the proven techniques that we've just discussed and always look for opportunities to be better. Whatever your motivation was for being here tonight, I hope you leave feeling excited about what you can do, and I can't wait for you to put it into action. I truly believe the future of aesthetic medicine is in the hands of dentists and dental therapists, and I really hope you see it too. If you're interested in learning more about these things with me and exploring aesthetic medicine, I would be thrilled to have you join my Aesthetic Training Hub at Smileworks. Head over to the Smileworks Hub at www.smileworks-hub.co.uk and register for one of our courses or hit us up on Instagram. Everything that we do there is about launching your career in aesthetics successfully. And that includes the technical aspects of administering treatments just as much as it includes skills in consultations, managing your business and patients, and just getting it right. It's been an absolute joy speaking to you tonight. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope you've taken some useful pointers away. We're going to switch over to the Q&A now, and I look forward to answering some of your questions. Thanks, guys. Okay, so let's have a look at all of these questions. Question number 1, I've just set up a new facial aesthetics facility. Please give me 3 marketing tips and 3 don'ts. I've given you 4 actual marketing tips, well, self-marketing tips, 5 if you count the expectation management part, to successfully grow your aesthetics practice as a dentist from your existing patients. I know you can do this. So let's talk about some don'ts. Don't think that your patients are going to be dropped into your lap. You need to be brave, bold, and practice how you're going to convert them. So use my tips that I've given you. Don't wait for the patient to ask you about aesthetics. You might never get given that opportunity again, and they might go and be a patient in someone else's practice, and that would be a disaster. Also, don't think that in order to be successful, you have to spend a bunch of money on marketing. This is about your skills with the patients, your consultation, and the way you get them to explore their options with them that will make your success. Let's move on to the next question. I'm currently thinking of facial aesthetics. I'm a therapist. I'm unsure whether it will work within my practice environment. I'm worried that I might not be able to get new clients in on my own, and I would also need a Botox prescriber. Dental patients are aesthetics patients, and aesthetics patients are dental patients. If you're doing whitening or composite bonding, or someone in your practice is doing braces, then it will work in your practice. I've given you some pointers on how you can test the desire with patients without embarrassment and without cringe. And these are things that you can absolutely do on your own, and I empower you to try them out. Yeah, as a therapist, you will need a prescriber who's a appropriately qualified too. This is sometimes the biggest hurdle. At the Hub, we try and work out how you're going to get to doing aesthetics within your safe dental practice surroundings. And we have lots of tips on how to get yourself there successfully. So that might include speaking to your practice principal and future pacing them about how it will fit into the practice. It's not just about selling you the technical skills and letting you get on with it. I am invested in you being a star performer, and that means pulling the right levers to get your practice off the ground. Let's have a look. What are the best photos to take? I love full face pictures taken on background. The more pictures, the better. Take them in addition to whatever you take for your dental series, and make sure they're nice and high quality. It's really important that when the patient looks at the screen, it's not parked behind them and the computer is within easy reach and they don't have to crane their necks. If you haven't the facility at your practice to show them a monitor in front of them where they're sitting, it might be as easy as investing in an iPad to show them right in front of them. The photo setup that you need to deliver high quality photos isn't expensive. It's a foldable background, can be picked up from Amazon for about 30 quid. For full face pictures, you'll need external flashes and not a ring flash. Again, this is an Amazon job. If you need advice on kit to take for aesthetic full face pictures, drop me a line on Instagram or via email if you're unsure of what to buy so that we can get you set up to take in some decent pictures. Let's have a look. Do your courses include photography tips? Love the style of your before and after. Thank you. we do spend quite a lot of time trying to get it right. Yes, they do. We show you exactly how to set up the pictures, what angles to take, and how to incorporate these into your workflow, what kit to buy, and all that good stuff. Especially on the practice days, you'll be doing all of that end to end. So you get to work out exactly how you should practice in order to really shine and stand out as a practitioner. Do I always use a camera or do I use an iPhone or iPad to take pictures in surgery? I always use a DSLR. There is, as a conscientious practitioner who wants to take decent quality photos, you cannot take those on an iPhone or an iPad. It just isn't possible. These days, DSLRs are really cheap and easy to come by, and they are indispensable if you want to really look like you mean business in aesthetics. When I see Instagram photos of people who've obviously taken their pictures on an iPhone or an iPad, it just makes me cringe. You are dentists and you are dental therapists and you understand aesthetics and you understand beauty, so take aesthetically pleasing and beautiful photographs. Greetings from Mexico. Amazing. That's excellent. Greetings back to Mexico. Are there any books or articles that you would recommend for improving your knowledge and help with consultations? We are about to launch the Smileworks online service or Smileworks online platform for delivering on-demand content for our delegates. And a lot of what we teach at the Hub are things that I've pieced together from years of practice, years of trial and error, and years of finding out what works and what doesn't. I've had a fair few gaffes in my life and foot in mouth moments, and we hope that by putting it all together on the Hub platform, we can hopefully save you some embarrassment and we can get you practicing to just a higher caliber than you would normally if you're just finding your feet on your own. Unfortunately, I don't actually know of any books or articles that would stand out to me right now. But hopefully we can teach you a thing or two at the Hub so that you may have better consultation skills, higher conversions, and just a better job satisfaction. Is there a light you recommend for taking consistent quality photos? 2 flash boxes are good. drop me a little email. We will send you the whole list. We'll send you a picture of our photo studio setup. Everything that we use, it's not expensive stuff, so you can actually get all of this relatively cheaply from Amazon, and set yourself up and look like a real pro, which is something that your patients deserve and that you deserve. Oh my God, there's loads of them. Could you recommend for any apps for storage of all these clinical pictures safely as per GDPR? So we actually, at Smileworks, we actually have a closed system. So we don't log in remotely and everything is stored on our servers. We take pictures on DSLRs and transfer them directly into the practice management software, which is all password protected. I am sure there are patient management systems that can store photos. I wouldn't necessarily know whether there are any that would be appropriate for your clinical practice setting. You'd have to do a little research and have a look at what's appropriate for you. When you mentioned front of house being key to the startup, how do they introduce facial aesthetics in the practice? So with the steps that they take, they set the expectation for what is going to be the consultation. Then they introduce me as a practitioner, and they also endorse me. So part of introducing me as a practitioner is telling them what I do. So telling them what I do involves things like telling them what areas of practice I work in, telling them what kind of treatments I perform, telling them what kind of education I have, and why I am best placed to deliver their kind of treatment. Setting the expectation of the consultation means that your patient knows exactly what to expect, and when you start talking to them about their face, it's not cringeworthy, and they know what to expect, and they know exactly what's coming. What is the cost of our hub days? So our courses are all on our website, www.smileworks-hub.co.uk. If you need any further information apart from the courses that are on the website, please email my training coordinator, Davina, and she will be able to help you out with any information that you may require. She is at delegates@smileworks-hub.co.uk. And I believe the last question, what practice management software do you use? We use MacPractice, which is a bit niche. It is actually for dentistry, and it's an American system. Not very many people use it in the UK. It's a Mac-based system. When we set up, it was one of the only ones that was purely Mac-based without having to open a PC or a Windows window inside a Mac. So we use that. It's really, really good. It takes a bit of getting used to, but it combines our dental functions and our aesthetics function, and it allows us to store all of our clinical pictures in a secure manner. So we love it. It's brilliant. Greetings from Cape Town, South Africa. Greetings back to Cape Town, South Africa. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, and one of my favorite places on earth. And hopefully someday I will be able to come and teach in Cape Town or in South Africa. So greetings back. Have a glass of wine on me. So I think that takes us to the end of our Q&A. I hope you've all enjoyed tonight. Thank you all for joining me. If you have any questions after the webinar, you can reach me at the Smileworks Hub Instagram, at Smileworks Hub, my Instagram, Dr. MJ Smileworks, or via the Smileworks Hub email, delegates@smileworks-hub.co.uk. I really hope I will see some of you real soon, joining us on our courses or at conferences, or just reach out to me. On that note, the cat has just started meowing at the door, so this is amazing timing. Thank you once again. Have a great night and stay safe.